Good afternoon, everybody. It is 4 o'clock, and I would like to call this meeting of the Roswell Infrastructure Committee to order. Could I have a roll call, please? Here.
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 Thank you. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes of the June 22nd, 2020 committee meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, this is the kind of meeting I like, where you guys do all the hard work and we get to watch the show. So,
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the part I like. I'm going to ask somebody else to do the next part, so it all rolls downhill. Juan will lead us through the project updates at this point.
thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Committee. My name is Juan
Good afternoon.
Salas. I'm here to represent the Engineering Department, standing in for Lewis this afternoon. Item 2, which is updates for the water towers. Tower 1 is approximately 70% complete. Tower 2 is approximately 40% complete. Tower 1, the anticipated completion date is January of 2021. And Tower 2, anticipated completion date month is August 2021. For Tower 1 on Gillis, if you can see the pictures, they're actually welding, putting the finishing touches on the tank, the interior and exterior of the tank. This work is going to go through from July through August. For September and October, the crews are going to come in and media blast the entire tank, prep it for painting. Tower 2, which is over on Martin Street, they're working on the pedestal right now. If you look at the picture right on the middle, they were actually putting concrete to build the crown. The welding crew will be jumping in to Tower 2 here August. That work will be happening between August through the month of September. For the update on the Garden Bridge.
Can I ask a question on the tower real quick?
Yes.
It's been fun watching them go up.
Yeah.
And so this is maybe a technical question, but
Okay.
so I saw that on I guess Tower 1, which is the one that's near the old tower,
Yes.
I saw that the whole tank was so they assembled the tank at the base
Correct.
and then they crane it up.
Yes.
That to me I was like, why is that? When I saw that, I
Yeah.
figured that's what was going on. So,
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting watching the entire tank go up, suspended by cables, and all this was happening hydraulic pumps. So.
because it wasn't craning, they pushed it up.
Yes, it was all hydraulic.
Oh wow,
Yes.
wow. And so the concrete piece is simply the structure to hold it up. There's actually no storage in that.
No, it's
It's-
just a hollow structure. It's
Okay.
a pedestal. Yes.
All just pipes and ladder
Yes.
and whatever else to get up there. Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mhm. The next one is the Garden Bridge project. If you can see the pictures, as of right now, as of today, all the major structure concrete has been in place. From the retaining walls to the slope paving, all that is in place, which was actually, it went up in good timing because of the rain that we had just last week. We had some minor erosion, but that was outside the structure. Everything that was important that needed to stay in place actually held up very well. The contractor is backfilling on both the north side and the south side of the structure. The water department is actually replacing one of the water lines that is approximately 70 feet from that structure. We just want to make sure that any water lines and things like that have been updated We don't want to go back and have to repair something once it's, a road is in place. And as of today, I asked the contractor to give us an update as far as when he anticipated for this road to be finished. And he said that it should be ready to be operational by early October. Okay?
And out of curiosity, when we replace a bridge like that, does the state have to come inspect it? Do we inspect it?
We've been doing the inspection.
Sure.
They'll come and do a final walkthrough with us. As far as the specs go, it was all DOT spec'd out.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. I was yeah. I was just curious how far in the process the state has to be involved, but they do come and inspect it at the end as well.
Yes, yeah, they'll be doing an inspection with us.
Okay. Thank you.
And with that, I stand for any other questions.
Any other questions? I think we're good. I appreciate the update. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As some of you have already seen this presentation, the intent here is to make this presentation at all 5 committees and then ultimately onto the full county or city council for conceptual approval of a new housing program. And really it started with the affordable housing plan that we did a couple of years ago when it was really demonstrated that we have a need, serious need for new affordable housing and housing in general, but we need multifamily, we need affordable housing, and basically across the spectrum. And so the question that we were looking at was, do our current city policies are they really holding us back with respect to development of new construction in the residential area? Are things or are policies in place holding us back? And so we thought about it, and we could probably come up with a new process here. And basically, we're looking at developing a process that would provide incentives to the development community, that would encourage new market rate housing, encourage the development of new affordable housing starts, which is really important in a lot of places within the city. Place vacant city-owned properties back onto the tax rolls. We have a number of properties that we've accumulated and we continue to accumulate. We want to get them back off of the non-taxing side and back into the private sector for use. We want to increase the number of housing units that would be using our water, sewer, and trash services that we can collect revenues from. We want to also, this one is really important, replace residential housing lost to code enforcement abatement activities and provide for renewed community development inside some of the city's more declining neighborhoods. And basically what we want to do is put stuff back. We've been really good about squishing things and removing things. Now we need to put things back and allow for families to come back into those communities to help establish neighborhoods like they used to have. And we also want to look at ways of streamlining our overall land development process, because right now it's a little bit extensive. Now currently this is just a typical number of fees that we will charge for new development. We've got a building permit fees, we have mechanical fees, plumbing fees. If you're commercial, we have parking lot fees, water and sewer taps, water meter fees. These are typical. And in addition, we have 2 leftovers kind of from the past. This is the frontage fee and the park fee. And the frontage fee was used to pay back the installation of main water and sewer lines running out throughout the entire city, basically the primary cities. And so these are dating back from the 50s in many cases. The park fees were used for the same thing. And basically we built a lot of parks, and now the idea is to collect that money to put it back in where it came from. But it's not cheap. In this particular example, we have a new house, and typically, $200,000 value is pretty common. 100 feet of frontage, The building permit fee there is $2,000. The park and frontage fee is $2,100. And the question is, how long do we collect these things for things that were put in decades ago? How long? And so really what we want to do is look at the question of, are we really only interested in short-term financial benefits through all those construction fees? Or should we be looking at it differently, more of a long-term, long time frame? I mean, a typical house can last at least 60 years. And during that time, we're collecting for the trash and the water and the sewer and the property taxes. We're also collecting from the GRT that's generated by the family that lives in that house. That's the long-term picture on this thing. And the one cost that we really haven't talked about is the value of that house in a distressed neighborhood, adding to the stability of that community and the value of that particular house in terms of helping to stabilize that community and hopefully not having to hire as many police or have to deal with EMT calls or overdoses and all the other bad things that happen out there in some of these communities. So there's a clear value in trying to stabilize that community for your bond. It's dollars and cents. And so really what we're talking about is short-term versus long-term benefits. Up to this point, we've been looking at that $6,000 that up front, those $1,000, whatever, for short-term. And maybe we want to do is look at it slightly differently, long-term. We do have some incentives already for multifamily that are in the code. And these were put in initially for Spring River Apartments about 5 years ago. And the idea is that the more units you bring in on a multifamily project, the more of a discount you get over time or over that building permit fees. So in this particular case, 10 units to 24 units, your fees are only half. And if you get up to 75 or more, it's only 5% of what typical fees would normally be. In addition, we have something called a density bonus that's in our zoning code that basically says if you can figure out how to put 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag with respect to density, and you meet all the development standards, the setbacks and the parking and all that good stuff, you can actually get up to 50% more density by right. And in a multifamily affordable housing system, you don't have a huge profit margin, so additional density is your incentive to a builder. Now they get more units, they get more profit, and it just makes it more viable. And so we said, oh, what else can we do? First, we're proposing is consolidation of all of those fees related to development into one fee. Not multiple fees across time or in places. One fee, you go in, you pay your fee, and also a single application versus a curb cut application and a water tap application, putting one piece of paper. You do it once, and that's it, and then it goes through the system. We've already talked about the density bonus and permit fee reductions that are currently in the code. We'd like to maintain those. And also, we want to talk about providing property for construction at heavily discounted rates, especially if you're doing affordable housing. And as we said, we've got a lot of properties now. Many of them are coming to us from the Clean and Safe and other locations that Todd's going to talk about in a minute. But basically, we want to consider, instead of holding on to them, all we're doing is mowing their grass. And so let's get them out, give them away. There's no value to us holding on to these things. Get them back out to the people that can do something value-wise. And really, in terms of priorities, for me, it's always been owner-occupied. Rentals are good. Owner-occupied with the family is the best. And for me, the family, that somebody who owns a mortgage or has a mortgage on a property out there, they're the ones that are going to fight for that property. Renters, oh yeah, maybe, definitely the mortgage holders. So what we're talking about here is having these scenarios. So if you're looking at wanting a permit for a single-family residential, a new, greater than $300,000, the fee would be $3,000. That's still a significant savings from what it could be, but if you're building a $300,000 home, you don't really need the help that other families do. Now, if it's less than 300,000, we say, okay, knock it down to 2,000. Okay, and if you're looking to do an affordable housing range, think Habitat for Humanity houses, 150, 160,000 in that range, and it changes year to year. We'll give you a parcel, throw a parcel in, and charge you $1,000. So somebody could build an affordable unit, get a piece of property that we aren't using right now, and have another house, a new structure in a distressed neighborhood that would be beneficial for that community. Now, if you already happen to have a parcel, charge you $750. Again, encourage people to go in and build a new house. Modular housing, this is just for the slab permits, $500. So Todd, why don't you come on up? This is our proposed development process, and he'll walk you through it.
Hello, thank you again. So, my name is Todd Persiglio, for those that don't know me. I've been working with Bill to help develop this program. Where I come in is what I'm doing is I'm working with existing properties that we have, identifying them, vetting them. Of course, Bill said the properties come to us from various ways. Number one, our Clean and Safe program. Number two is going to be the new nuisance ordinance program. When those properties come into the system, I'm vetting them and cataloging them to make sure that we know what we have out there. The next thing that I do in the process is make what we're calling a one sheet on each piece of property that shows the address, the actual value, the taxable value, everything that the builder or contractor or potential property owner is going to want to know about that piece of property. Also, the city utilities that are included, water, sewer, and solid waste. So I get them in, and I vet them, and I catalog them. Then I'm going to be working with the marketing department to get those properties back out to prospective builders through social media and other various ways with Juanita and her team. We'll do sale on market rate properties, property assessed for value, make sure, of course, clean title for purchase. We will have clawback provisions that'll be written in with those parcels that we include. If somebody says, hey, I want to build, they'll need to make sure that they fulfill that commitment. Like Bill talked about, incentives for the property sales, consolidate fees into one single fee, one single form, one application. And as we continue to get properties into the system through donation for affordable housing and such, we'll make sure that we utilize those again to get tax base and revenue back to the city. Thank you very much.
Todd mentioned the phrase affordability period, and this means that for affordable housing, according to state statutes, if you give property away, you have to have it has to be under certain conditions. We have the LEDA that's already been passed here, Local Economic Development Act, so we can give properties away or heavily discounted properties for the purposes of affordable housing. But in return, there has to be a 5-year time frame in which the property basically is held onto by the owner. And if they sell it before that time, they can still sell it. But any profit that's made comes back to the city. And that would be included in the documents as well as, or what other negotiated
Bill?
terms have we come up with? Yes, sir?
On profit, you mean, just for clarification, I'm not sure what you mean. Would it be profit on the land itself or profit, period?
Period.
Okay, so if they built a structure on that, let's say the city valued the land, we're going to use nice round numbers, at $1,000, but we gave it to them for $500, and they built a $1,000 building on that, and they sold the whole kit and caboodle for $3,000, they would owe the city $1,500 of profit.
Yes, yes, sir. And the reason here, I mean, that wouldn't apply to the contractor. They own it first. but they would then sell it to somebody else. That first family, past the contractor, is the one that would have to basically stay there for 5 years. We think that's reasonable, because what we're trying to do is encourage owner occupied. What we don't want to do is just generate rentals. We don't, we're trying to get people to live and have a commitment within those individual communities. So we're trying to encourage that 5-year owner occupied. That, like I said, they're the ones that are going to most protective of their communities because they got the most to lose. So what needs to happen? Well, we're going to be spending a lot of time. The reason that we're trying to do this now is that we're thinking we'll have to spend 150 man-hours to do all of this. And what we don't want to do is go through all the text amendments and all the stuff and then bring it out and then have kind of surprise you guys. And you go, wait a minute. So what we're trying to do is go through every committee just to give you guys a heads up on what's coming. If you have any questions, you always come and ask. Come talk to us. But there's nothing formal yet. We're kind of getting the skeleton put together. And so we're going to need to make major changes to Chapter 26, basically consolidate all those fees, as well as eliminate the park and extension fees that we talked about earlier. We're going to have to make some major changes to Chapter 6 on how we, again, consolidate all those building fees, because they're all laid out individually within those chapters. And also include a new section on how all of this housing program would work within the code. We have to develop internal policies on how we're going to process those individual applications as they go through. It's going to be like there's going to be a policy. It's not just haphazard. It has to be in a certain pattern. All that having said, it has to be an understanding that there's going to be a reduction within the community development revenue short term to pick up these, to lose, when we do this. But on the other hand, long term, we think there's clear benefit to the city getting people back into those communities. So that's what we're trying to do here. Let's see, we are this slipped a little bit. We did go to public safety. We've been to infrastructure today, and general services is tomorrow. And so the idea here is to wrap these up with the next couple. And Jeff can't wait to hear any more of these. Jeff Bechtel, he loves these presentations. And so the idea is that we take it in August for basically a resolution says we concur, we, the city, either do or do not want to pursue this. And so we can go into it knowing that what our basic aim is supposed to be. And so I stand for any questions if anybody has it.
So your plan then, as far as getting this through us, which is always a task,
With you guys.
together, but is to bring to what you're trying for August 13th is basically to get guidance to execute this plan at a fine
correct.
detail level. And then the plan will then go through, I assume, legal or finance or both, and with the fine tooth comb level.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hey,
Yeah, I'll open up to any comments. Councilor Peterson.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this is a great idea, Bill. A lot of people, they can't afford a $200,000 home, but they can afford like a $80,000 home or $60,000, $70,000 home. And, if you can free some areas up where people could buy those type houses is great. A lot of people now, they get a trailer house and they go out in the county and, if you go drive towards Artesia one of these days, you can see all the people, they're moving out in the county because it's extremely hard to get a place here in Roswell. Thanks.
Yeah, I would concur. I think that anything we can do to, I know we've been kind of talking about this, and I'm really glad to see the motion, and I appreciate you guys' work on this. And as well as bringing it to us at this state in the game, so that we can kind of get our mind around it and be ready for it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's great to simplify the process, I think is huge. Certainly, we need to get these properties, as you said, they're not helping us any by holding on to them as the city. Roughly, what inventory of properties are we talking about that are currently in residential areas that the city owns that are?
We have probably that we've gone through, we've got a lot of property.
Yeah, I know.
And a lot of it is junk. I mean, and you don't know that until you go through that long list and you check it and you go, oh, well, it's drainage, or it's a triangular shape next between the railroad and,
Sure.
and this thing. And so we probably got 50, I want to say 50 properties thereabouts. And I mean, we're going through 17 clean and safe properties right now that we're actively
Sure.
demonstrate. And so those are the kind of ones that Todd is now actively contacting code enforcement and then making sure that legal's involved. So as the condemnation process, before it was kind of disjointed, and so we didn't know. Now it's a lot more codified. And so the idea is that there's a constant do loop, if you would, input of these properties instead of them just sitting out there for a while. We would also encourage, there's like the housing authority, the Eastern New Mexico Housing Authority has properties, and we would always work with them as well. Other multifamily parcels, most of them are single family, but we have some big chunks of dirt too. But they need some work, they need some love in terms of infrastructure. How are we going to get infrastructure to some of these? And so it's hopefully once the thing is started and it continues, it's the vetting, finding out exactly which ones are really good, because I don't want to just put a list out there and the developer goes through. It spends hours looking at stuff and going, there's nothing here. I want to give a good, clean sheet. That's the one sheets are so important. They can go through it, they take a look, and maybe something piques their interest and they go for it. A couple of years ago, we did do our own subdivision up on Reed Street, north of Mendoza Park. That we owned a city block up there. And so we went through a subdivision process where we cut it up, and it's sitting there now, and it's also been included within that inventory. And so if we see those kind of opportunities, we're going to rock and roll on them.
In the case where there's a piece of land that a developer says, hey, I can build a house on that land for affordable housing, and then they build it and then they sell it to someone. How are we involved in setting the price on that land so as the affordable part passes on to the buyer, not just to the builder? Not to say that I'm okay with helping builders, don't get me wrong, but do you understand the nature of my question?
I think so. All the properties are going to have to be valued. You
Correct.
have to put down a cost. What is this thing worth to you? And then you can write it off. So it's in the paperwork. And what we've determined is one of the more expensive parts on property is the appraisal. Just getting an appraisal. And so what we've determined is we can use the tax assessor's valuation. You know, they have what they think it's at,
Sure.
and then there's the taxable amount. We just go with the top one. It's an authority, and so we're just going to try to cut that cost out, state it in the documents, and so that's the starting point. Does that answer your question?
No, maybe. So if we are binding people to a 5-year ownership thing, which I agree with your philosophy, I guess I'm trying to understand. They're being bound because we gave them a deal on the property, correct? So my question is, how do we make sure that the people being bound reap the benefit of the cost savings versus, because if you're not binding the people who are actually building the house.
If they're are you talking about people that have a piece of property?
No, you said that, so for certain properties, if the city effectively gives someone the property,
Right.
or at an extremely reduced rate, whatever, so basically we're making a contribution, we have to get the benefit. The benefit that we're getting for that is that the people have to live in that house for 5 years, or we get the profits, one of the two.
Right.
So how does the benefit pass from the contractor, the person who bought the property from us, built the house, how does that benefit the financial benefit
Okay.
passed to the people who are actually in the house for 5 years.
Actually, it's a deed restriction that gets put on the property that gets recorded with the property appraiser's office.
So do we restrict the value that the contractor can sell that house at?
No. Well, it has to the contractor, if they're building an affordable unit, there are parameters by which they have to, that value of that house has to be. And it has to be within the moderate income fold, 80 to 120% of the median income for the city. And there's evaluations actually published every year by the state of New Mexico on what that number should be. That number is the one that we use to determine whether it's going to be an affordable house or not. A habitat house, like I said before, that's always within that parameter. So that's what basically guides what's affordable in terms of the value going forward.
Sure. I guess, let me rephrase the question, see if I can explain it better. So if I build a house, I come make a deal with the city, and I build the house as a builder, and then I sell it to Councilor Kenner. When she buys that house, she also is encumbered with the restriction that if she sells that house within 5 years, she has to give the city the profit. But the builder, myself, I reap the benefit of the lower property price. So in that point, it's just an incentive to get me to build. It's not necessarily an incentive that's passed along to, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just trying to understand. It's just an incentive that to get the build versus an incentive that's passed along to the homeowner. Are you following what I'm saying?
Well, not exactly. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm a little
So-
slow here.
So if I'm building a house and I do this program, okay, so so basically by taking the land from the city as a builder, let's just say it's a $100,000 house and the land would have cost me $10,000 normally, and so now it's only going to cost me, we'll just say zero. So now it's $90,000. It's going to cost me to build that house.
Okay.
And then I go and I sell it for $100,000. I'm taking as the builder, I'm taking that value of that $10,000.
Right. Because the value of the total cost that you're selling it to Ms. Kindred is going to still be within the moderate or within the affordable range.
I understand that, but I'm not the one who's restricted for 5 years. I can't sell it.
No.
Right, but they are.
Correct.
But I guess my question is, what benefit have they received to accept that restriction? Just the fact that they were able to buy the house at all? The fact that it's on the market?
The fact that they have a new house that they're going to be living in for 5 years, hopefully, that they couldn't get before at a
Sure.
price that's affordable. The idea is to shave the profit margins down a little bit so the builder still gets enough
Sure.
to do the project.
Okay.
And there's still a
Makes sense.
cost that allows Ms. Kindred to buy that property
So
within the price range.
so the savings at the property level is to incentivize, is to give profit to the builders, which builders need profit. That's how they stay in business. They're businesses, I get that. I think the part that we need to be to clarify in that as you work through this is the builder gets the direct benefit, but then we are encumbering the buyer.
Right?
And to me, we need to have a good understanding of how that fits. Because it's hard for me to give the direct benefit to one person, and then have somebody else do the hard work for it. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, but I would say that the benefit that the builder got allows her to buy that property when she may not be able to afford it
Sure.
at the normal cost. So she's getting a benefit from this process too, all the way down the line. Now, the builder, I would say, they're taking a chance. They're the
Sure.
ones that are putting up the money, they're the ones doing the work, they're the ones trying to find potential buyers that meet all these eligibility requirements and trying to make that work. So that's their cost, a burden, if you would, to cut this through.
Sure.
But they get that house, and then the idea is you have a new house with a new family, and hopefully they stay there at least 5 years.
Okay.
That's our intent.
Yeah, I think that there potentially could be some debate about what's the appropriate time length on that to encumber that, et cetera, but I think that's good. The other thing that, as I've thought about this in the past, I wonder if, I would be curious to see what percentage of our budget, or your budget, your apartment's budget, it comes from fees. And maybe even for when you bring it to finance, you might have that information. That'd be great. But I'd like to see, you know, what is the cost benefit of, saying, doing a, for lack of a better word, a tax holiday for a year to incentivize a lot of these things to happen quickly, saying within the first year of doing this, we're actually going to cancel all the fees down to 10% or whatever, to really to spur immediate reaction, but then put a timeline on it, which will then people will help people move quickly on, this is the opportunity to take advantage of this, so that people start building now. And I'd love to look at the pros and cons of that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So I think long-term, the fees are important there, but maybe we might do for 6 months, a year. If you get your permits now, get the property set up now, maybe we bring them down to zero. I don't know. I'd love to see what the cost benefit is on something like that.
Well, part of the dance that you have to do in New Mexico, of course, is the any donation clause.
Sure.
And there has to still be a nexus between affordable housing or economic development or the other allowed deviations from the state constitution in order to do this. And so that's why the affordable part is easy. I mean, it fits. You know, you have a need, you meet the numbers, not a big deal. You've got a lot of room. At the upper end, it's harder to do because it's really hard, like I said. At the upper end, you're not talking about affordable housing, you're not talking about economic development, you're talking about people that just are able to afford to build a big house. And so you have to be careful about how far your tax holiday goes with those, because it doesn't meet LEDA, the Local Economic Development Act. And so that'll be one of those things that we'll work with the attorneys on. Obviously, there's 5 million things. There's 100 questions
Sure.
I don't even know I'm supposed to be asking.
Sure, but
That's one of them, and we'll work with
but
that.
regardless of the affordable housing, we can set those fees to whatever we want. Correct? Or
Yes,
incorrect?
yes.
That's a question,
we
not
could.
a,
But
statement.
how far down do we go? I mean, if it becomes that it's a subsidy, that it can be a challenge. I mean, if you're giving a subsidy to somebody to build a very expensive
Sure.
house that it's
But
hard
like
to
you
justify.
said, it's less, all these things are not necessarily even subsidies from a business standpoint. I think that you take our counselors who are most business-minded, or who constantly say the city runs like a business. The question is, when they look at that, would they see the long-term benefit that you clearly and articulated earlier, the long-term benefit of having residents? You know, I mean, even thinking about big houses, where are they built in the city limits or out of the city limits? A lot of them are built outside of the city limits, you know, for these kind of reasons. And if we can entice them to build those larger houses in city limits, we get a lot more revenue. So it's not really necessarily even a subsidy. More of it is it's a marketing ploy. But I take
It's
your
all
meaning.
about the definition.
Yeah, I take your meaning. So, any other questions? Go ahead.
Just
Counselor Canard.
to go back to what you were talking about earlier, the buyer could be made aware of all of that would be on the table, and they would know about it from the builder, or as a requirement that the builder would have to let that, the home owner, purchaser know all of
Yeah.
those things in advance.
It would be part of the documents that we would have that would transfer from us to the contractor, and then from there, it would flow over.
Any more comments? Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Oh.
What are we on now to?
Should be public comments?
I wanted to ask for a update on, I'm starting to see if it's something in here, 'cause somebody brought it up to me recently. And I know that, I think it was maybe 2 meetings ago, that Abraham came and presented, maybe we voted on something, Carpenter Park splash pad. What's the status on that?
I would have to get, I'm not as intimately aware of these. I know that it's been ongoing. I'll bring this up to Lewis when he comes back tomorrow.
Great.
And maybe he can send out an email to y'all.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I've had some questions on it. I know that, I'm pretty sure it's an active project.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just
Oh, extremely.
curious about what kind of timeline we're on and how it's going, and
Bernadette will take down the notes, and we'll
Great.
have Lewis to get back to you guys.
great. Okay, any other questions on any of these reports or anything else? Yes, Counselor?
Thank you, Chairman. I don't know if you can help with this bill, but who's in charge of the porta potties at the Cielo Grande?
Should
Is
be
that-
recreation. I mean, I would assume the Parks and Recreation folks.
'Cause I tried calling Mr. Neb earlier, but Mike Matthews is on vacation. So I might have to wait for, a bunch of the porta potties were removed
Okay.
from Cielo Grande.
We'll get back with you.
I think that's a great question. You know, I think that they removed them when the whole COVID thing hit. And I guess the question is, and I don't know, when do we put them back? I mean, I'm for putting them back right away.
Yeah.
So if there's any restrictions,
Yeah, there's a lot of people that.
people are using it, yeah.
I got
I agree.
I got a lot of calls today.
Have you talked to Jim Burris about it?
No, I didn't know who was in charge of it exactly.
We'll get back with you guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Counselor?
Anything else? Was there anybody here for public comment? We did that last time. We did plenty of it last time. I don't think we had to do any. I think we used our minutes up last time. Yeah, I think you missed it. You weren't here, were you? Were you here last time? What was all that public comment on? I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was on the trail. It was on the bike trail we talked about last time. So that was fun. So if there's no public comment, any other questions on any of the department reports that are in here? If not, it is 4:41 and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.